It was 3 a.m. A loud knock on the door broke the silence like thunder in the calm. My daughter stood there crying. Bruised, broken in spirit. Dad, my husband hit me. Because of his mistress, she whispered. I silently put on my old uniform, feeling anger overcome years of calm. One call in the night. The plan begins now. Betrayal will receive its just punishment. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. The pounding tore through my sleep like a freight train. I sat up disoriented. The red digits on my alarm clock glowed 3:15 a.m. Another round of fists hammered against wood downstairs. Not the doorbell. Someone was hitting my front door with their bare hands. My chest tightened as I swung my legs over the side of the bed. The hardwood floor felt cold against my bare feet. 35 years as a Chicago detective had taught me that nothing good happened at 3 o'clock in the morning. The pounding continued, desperate and unrelenting. I grabbed my robe from the chair and moved toward the stairs. Each step creaked under my weight. My hand found the banister, gripping the smooth wood as I descended. The sound grew louder with every step. Whoever was out there wasn't stopping. At the bottom of the stairs, I flipped the foyer light switch. Harsh brightness flooded the entryway. My fingers fumbled with the deadbolt. Then the chain lock. The pounding stopped the moment I touched the door handle. I pulled the door open. Christine stood on my porch, backlit by the street lamp behind her. For a split second, she was just a silhouette. Then she stumbled forward into the light. And my world stopped. Her left eye was swollen shut, a grotesque purple-black that spread from her eyebrow to her cheekbone. Blood had dried at the corner of her split lip. Dark finger marks circled her throat like a terrible necklace. I could count each one. 5 distinct impressions. The shoulder of her dress was torn, hanging loose and exposing her bra strap. "Daddy," she whispered and collapsed into my arms. Her weight caught me off guard. I staggered back, wrapping my arms around her as she sobbed into my chest. She smelled wrong. Not her usual vanilla perfume. Something sharper. Fear has a scent, and I'd learned to recognize it decades ago. My husband hit me. Her voice came out hoarser, broken because of his mistress. The words ignited something in my chest. Blood roared in my ears. My vision narrowed to a tunnel. Every case I'd ever worked, every victim I'd ever interviewed, every wife I'd seen broken and bleeding flashed through my mind in an instant. But this wasn't just another case. This was Christine. I tightened my grip on her shoulders and guided her toward the kitchen. She could barely walk. Each step seemed to hurt her. The hallway stretched longer than usual. Finally, we reached the kitchen doorway. I pulled out a chair from the old wooden table and eased her into it. She winced as she sat. The overhead light was too bright. I could see everything now. Every bruise, every mark, every sign of what that man had done to my daughter. "Don't move," I said, keeping my voice steady. Years of training helped me sound calmer than I felt. I crossed to the freezer and pulled out ice, wrapping it in a dish towel. My hands shook as I tied the corners. Water from the melting ice dripped onto the counter. I grabbed a glass, filled it from the tap, and brought both back to the table. Christine flinched when I pressed the ice gently against her swollen eye. Her good eye looked up at me, filled with shame and pain, and something else. "Defeat. Drink," I instructed. Placing the glass in her trembling hand, she took a small sip, then another. I pulled my phone from my robe pocket and turned on the camera. The flash lit up the dim kitchen like lightning. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Documenting." I took photos from multiple angles. Her face, her throat, the torn dress. "We'll need these." She didn't protest. Just sat there holding the ice pack, letting me work. "Tell me what happened," I said, sitting down across from her. Her story came in fragments. She'd found a hairpin under their bed, not hers. When she confronted Titus, he'd exploded, told her she was worthless, that Diane was younger, prettier, better, that Christine should be grateful he stayed with her at all. He grabbed me by the throat, she whispered, shoved me against the wall, said if I had a problem with it, I could leave. "So you came here," she nodded. He's with her right now in our house, in our bed. I stood up, my chair scraped against the floor. The sound seemed too loud in the quiet kitchen. Christine watched me, her good eye following my movements. What are you thinking? I looked at my daughter. Really, looked at her. The girl who used to dance on my feet in the living room. The teenager who'd rolled her eyes at my overprotective rules. The bride in white who'd asked me on her wedding day if her husband really loved her. I'd seen the signs, even then. I'm thinking, I said slowly, that this ends now. I moved toward the garage door, but stopped. My hand rested on the doorknob. Behind me, Christine's breathing was ragged and uneven. Her wedding day flickered in my mind. The signature room, 95 floors above Chicago. She'd looked so beautiful in that white dress, asking me that question as we danced. Christine's hands trembled around the water glass. I'd seen those hands before, steady and confident, holding a bouquet of white roses. Her wedding day 8 years ago. How had we ended up here? The kitchen felt too small, suddenly. I sat back down heavily in the chair, and the motion pulled me backward through time. June 14th, 2014. The signature room stretched before us. All glass and elegance on the 95th floor of the John Hancock Center. Florida-to-ceiling windows framed Lake Michigan, and the setting sun painted the water in streaks of orange and purple. 100 guests filled the space with laughter and champagne toasts. Christine had looked radiant in her wedding dress, all lace and silk, her dark hair swept up in an elegant twist. I'd watched her float through the room, smiling at guests, accepting congratulations. Titus stayed close to her side, his hand always on her elbow or the small of her back. At the time I thought it was devotion. Now I knew better. It was possession. The reception had started smoothly enough. Titus worked the room like a politician, shaking hands and making charming conversation. He looked good in his expensive suit, confident and successful, the perfect son-in-law. Everyone said so. But there were moments, small things that nagged at me even then, though I'd pushed them aside. Christine had stood to give a thank you speech. She'd barely started when Titus interrupted her. "Honey, that's not quite how we met. Let me tell it." He took the microphone from her hand. She'd smiled, but the light in her eyes had dimmed. Later at the head table, I'd watched him order her meal, without asking what she wanted. "She'll have the salmon. She needs to watch her figure." Christine had laughed it off, but her cheeks had flushed red. During the toast, she'd tried to tell a joke about their first date. Titus had talked over the punchline, telling his version instead. The guests had laughed at his story. Nobody noticed how Christine's smile had frozen on her face. I'd noticed the way his hand gripped her wrist under the table, noticed the white pressure marks when he finally let go, noticed how she'd rubbed the spot absently, while smiling at a guest's comment. "He's just nervous," I told myself. Wedding jitters. But then came the father-daughter dance. The DJ had played Unforgettable, and the lights had dimmed. A spotlight followed us to the center of the dance floor. Christine's hand rested on my shoulder. My hand found the small of her back, where her dress was open, and we began to sway. Behind us, the Chicago skyline glittered like scattered diamonds. Around us, guests watched with champagne glasses raised. Everything looked perfect. "Daddy," she'd whispered, leaning close to my ear, "do you think he really loves me? Sometimes he's so controlling." My heart had skipped. This was it, the moment. She was asking me to tell her the truth, to give her permission to doubt, to help her escape. And what had I said? "It's just pre-wedding nerves, sweetheart. Every man gets anxious." Her face had searched mine, looking for something more. Some sign that I saw what she saw, that I understood her fear. But I'd smiled reassuringly. "You're married now. Give it time. He'll settle down." She'd wanted to believe me. I could see it in her eyes. The desperate hope that everything would be fine, that love would conquer all, that the doubts whispering in her mind were wrong. The song had ended. Applause filled the room. Other couples joined us on the dance floor, and the music shifted to something upbeat. Titus had immediately cut in, pulling Christine away from me with barely a thank you. I'd watched them dance, watched how his grip on her waist looked a little too tight, how she kept glancing at him nervously, as if checking for approval. The night had wound down around 10:30, Still early for a wedding reception. Guests were laughing, dancing, enjoying the open bar. But Titus had suddenly appeared at Christine's side, speaking urgently in her ear. "We need to go now." Christine had looked confused. "But I haven't said goodbye to everyone. Early flight tomorrow for the honeymoon." We discussed this. His hand had closed around her elbow, firm and insistent I'd approach them. "Everything okay?" Titus had flashed that charming smile. "All good, sir. Just trying to stick to schedule. You know how it is." But there was no early flight. I'd found that out later. They weren't leaving for Hawaii until the following week. Christine had looked back at her guests, at me, uncertainty written across her face. Then Titus had steered her toward the exit, his hand never leaving her arm. I'd watched them disappear through the door. She'd glanced over her shoulder one last time. Her expression had been impossible to read. Confusion, fear, hope that I'd call out and stop them. But I'd just turned back to the remaining guests, accepting congratulations, ignoring the sick feeling in my stomach. "I should have known," I said aloud, and the kitchen snapped back into focus around me. Christine lowered the ice pack from her face. "What? Your wedding day? You asked me if he loved you. You told me he was controlling." My voice came out rough. "And I told you it was normal." Her good eye filled with tears. "Dad, I knew deep down, I always knew something was wrong, but I wanted so badly to believe in the fairy tale. I should have listened to my instincts. Should have stopped it then. I wouldn't have listened." She reached across the table, her fingers finding mine. I ignored my own instincts too. We both wanted the happy ending. The shared guilt hung between us, heavy and undeniable. Two people who'd seen the warning signs and chosen to look away, but looking away was over. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. The sound echoed in the quiet kitchen. Christine watched me with her battered face, and I saw both the bride in white and the broken woman in front of me. "The wedding was just the beginning," I said. "You tried to tell me after that too, didn't you?" She nodded slowly. "So many times." Christine rubbed her wrist absently, an unconscious gesture. I'd seen her do it before, 3 years into her marriage, sitting across from me in a coffee shop. Same motion, same excuse when I'd asked about it. I should have pushed harder. The kitchen clock showed 4:05 a.m. Outside the window, the street remained dark and empty. Inside, memories cascaded through my mind like dominoes falling. 4 years, 4 conversations, 4 chances I'd let slip away. April 2015, 11 months after that perfect wedding, the Wormhole Coffee in Wrigleyville had become our meeting spot. Small place, all exposed brick walls and vintage arcade games, smelling perpetually of dark roast espresso. We'd sit in the corner booth by the window, watching the afternoon traffic pass outside.